Hey, what's up? We're in the next part, so please go check out the previous part to gauge your bearings. I'm still telling the story, and I'm gonna carry on right from where I left off because, really, to recap, bye guys, this is a long story, and I still have quite a long way to go, so let's get straight into it. I told you in my previous part how it is that, my boyfriend was starting to disappoint me very severely, and I drove to the destination where I was going to be training the next morning, crying, because my boyfriend literally almost stood me up without helping me along when I had been so ride or die to him, right? And then he got like an attack of conscience at the last minute, called me, told me to come and get the money, but he was rude and he was drunk. He was stumbling around all over the show, and he was drunk in a way that I never for the life of me recognized, because he was never like that. He was better able to hold his liquor. Did we recover? Of course, because we didn't break up. We spoke probably around Tuesday. I think all of Monday we didn't talk, and not because I wouldn't talk to him, but because he would not stop sending me text messages and emails on some I'm sorry. He was such a broken record. My ex, that way, because he would predictably commit abominations and very immediately basically try to fix, because as my ex was such a puppet on a string. He would allow his friends to massacre our relationship, and then once he got home where his mom and dad lived and sister, that's where it was it dawned on him on something. No, I can't do Skarabo. I'm sorry, no, I'm not doing it. So he would immediately just kind of snap out of whatever little jumpsuit he was wearing on the weekend and then try to anyway. He would send me these emails my ex, he never let me dump him, or he did something. No, he never let me dump him. Okay, just to describe what used to happen there, whenever we would argue and fight, he never used to retaliate, and I think that's why we lasted so long. Because some guys, when a woman fights and argues, they snap back, they're verbally abusive, they speak smack. He just used to take nonsense in his stride, whatever it is I would say, he would take it, and then his response was never harsh or mean. It was always reconciliatory, in the sense that he was like, okay, look, I get it, I suck, what I did was messed up, but I love you, and you and I are supposed to be together, we can't. He never ever was rude to me whenever I was angry. That is something that I believe kept us together for that time. It's almost he got it. My love language is words of affirmation, and so therefore my hate language necessarily translates to words of lack of affirmation. So he knew not to offend me or insult me kamantswi. He never ever spoke smack because we're fighting. That is something that he just got right, all the time. Every guy, the dude from the US, the one that was my fiance for all of 5 seconds, he was rude, mean to me, verbally. He said things that were frankly just unacceptable to me. The dude that I dated for 2 months, that I thought was a Christian, but it turned out he once told me that if you insult me with words, we are not gonna last. And my ex just literally, he got that right all the way up until the end. He never ever retaliated. And also another thing about him, never ever did he even call me by my name, Karabo. Rarely ever did he ever call me Karabo. Even when we were fighting, it was always baby or sweetie or whatever. He just never. Maybe that's because he was always the one that was wrong, I don't know, but he never snapped out of I love her mode, type setup thing. And so whenever I would hear him say Karabo, that was once in a blue moon, and I knew, goodness, what did I do? It was uh-oh, what in the world did I ever do? If my ex ever called me by my name, it was always uh-oh, what in the world did I do to cause this dude to basically refer to me by my name? To a point where one of his boys used to call me baby, because my ex never called me Karabo. He was never like, hi Karabo, how are you? He'd be like, hi baby, how are you? Because that's what my ex used to call me all the time. So that way he used to tease us that way, or whatever it is that would be the name that my ex had for me on his what do you call this thing, the name that you would save a person's name as on your cell phone. One time that same friend read it was something like Jumbi or whatever, some funny little name that my ex had for me, and so this guy started calling me by that, and it was just a whole joke for him. He used to tease us that way. So like I said, my ex-boyfriend rarely ever was like, Karabo, so when am I gonna see you? It was always, baby, when am I gonna see you, etc. And he got that right. Whenever we were fighting, it was always baby. When we're happy, it's always baby. When we are sideways, it's always baby. It was never just Karabo, right? It was literally just never Karabo. No matter how harsh things got, unless it was very extreme, which was very rarely ever. Very well. Cool beans and bananas. So because my ex just, it's almost as if whatever thunderous mood I was in, whatever sorrow was in my heart and soul, he always just literally maneuvered his way out of it by talking to me like we're not even fighting. He would never stop. Like, yeah, see, this guy, he would have made for a great disciple because he had temperance right. Like, he literally got temperance or gentleness right. He got it down. Like, he got it down. And that is rare in men, like, frankly, because they're the ones that blow their top and lose tempers and what have you. Yeah, so this dude had a really good temperance about him, and it was perfect for a woman like me. That's why he used to say, I'm the only guy that's gonna know how to manage you or handle you. It was a little arrogant for him to say that, but he wasn't too far from the truth, right? So here it is that this dude, whenever I would be super angry, super mad, super sad because of what he did, he would always prosper in a very short space of time to come back, and we'd be like literally back to square one again. He always made it back in. He always made it back in. No matter how hard, I was determined to stay gone. I would dump him. He would let me breathe for 5 seconds, and then he would come back and talk to me like we're still together, very gently, and just kind of make it clear that, but you, I mean, come on, like, just like that. Like, he used to like saying that. Every time we break up, he'd be like, just like that, like, no, like, just like that, we're not together. I mean, that doesn't even sound normal, Karabo, like, you and me not together. Not even Karabo, baby. You and I, no, it's not time. It's like he just said something that in my spirit I sort of knew was true, because I was not ready. I wasn't done with him. I wasn't done. So whenever I'd be like, I'm not doing this, we're done, and then he would call me trying to get back together, he would be like, but how? You're basically saying that you and I are not together? That's how he I'd be like, exactly, that's what I'm saying. He'd be like, it doesn't make sense. I'd be like, I'm done, leave me alone. But then, by the end of that conversation, I would be like, no, we're not. Like, I'm done. I'd hang up, and then I'd send him a text message the next morning on it's you. And we just carry on from where we left off. And the sad thing about it is, because he had almost lost me and I had forgiven him, I expected that when we get back together, we're going to talk about the thing that upset me in the first place, so that he would just stop doing it, and that we would like be better now going forward, right? It never happened, and that was the frustrating thing, right? I would break up with him, we'd get back together, because I would realize that he's right. We can't not be together. It just didn't make sense. I'd realize it, I'd let him back in, I'd think we were gonna talk, and we wouldn't. He just did not want to argue. He just wanted to be together. For me, that was like, these are unresolved issues, and we never spoke about them, even though I wanted to. He would just sit there and nod and say, okay, yeah, I agree, just so he could be with me again, so we could basically cuddle again, and that's it. For me, it was like, but this is unresolved, and if we don't resolve it, it's just gonna flare up again. And indeed, lo and behold, it did flare up until it eventually bombed 5 years down the line. Okay, it was like that on and on, like literally wire throughout the relationship. My ex and I never stayed separated or broken up for more than 3 or 4 days. 3 or 4 days. We couldn't even do a week. We couldn't even do a week. So even when I say we used to make up and break up, I don't really think it qualifies as a breakup. If at all, the season of silence and of sorrow lasted 3 days. When a man knows that about a woman, when he sees that basically his life is insufferable without her, and like he can't live, and it's shocking that she's not there when he is basically just kind of going through these streets without her, and then he still keeps on pulling stunts. I'm sorry, you had it coming when you finally do lose her. During the seasons when I would be determined to walk out and be like, I'm not doing it, like I was serious, and he couldn't. I mean, my ex got so used to me getting back together with him every time we'd break up that one time he was literally laughing at me on the phone on some it's not, come on, you know, even my mom wanted to call you to what right now on my behalf, and I was like, no, it's my woman, I know how to talk to my own woman. And you know, he told me that on the phone, and I was like, how arrogant are you? I'm gonna walk out. So he didn't believe me every time I would break up with him. He prospered to basically do what he imagined caused me to snap out of whatever thing that I'm in. So basically, to him, we weren't really broken up. I just needed to breathe for 2 days, then he'll be back in day 3. I don't know who he thought he was, the son of man to rise again from the dead, but anyway. However, there were times when I was so serious, and my tone was just so determined that when he called me back, there was actual trepidation in him, and he was humble. and he would be like, look, we need to talk, please, like, can we talk? And I'd be like, I'm not interested. And then he would start crying. Like, that dude used to get me with tears. Like, he used to get me every time. The first time I nearly like broke up with him, the very, very first breakup, I calmed down because he started to tremble. Shapa vai vai. Oh, baby mama, really? Come on. It's funny now. But back then, no shame, guys, it was actually very painful. Don't nobody want to see a grown man cry. Yeah, so I would take him back. But even after those tears, he was just happy to be basically laying his head on my bosom instead of talking about this thing that made us break up in the first place. We just had heaps upon heaps of these unresolved issues. This man had these friends that kept on pulling him away from a woman he knew he could not live without. And he did not ever get to a point where he just snapped out of the nonsense and started to do better. No, he did actually. He did, but it lasted maybe like a year, and then things just blew apart, and that's when I finally just like got given over to Jesus, right? So here it is that this thing with the friends got out of hand, and I then entered into a phase where after that day I got back together with him, right? After that day when he was drunk and he gave me the money with attitude. We got back together, had joy for all of 5 seconds. It was as quickly off as it was on. That relationship, it was kind of toxic, basically. And the toxicity really was frankly because of him, because I was trying to maintain a consistency, a homeostasis, but he kept on hurting me in ways that were unexpected. They were just punyugabampete from out of nowhere, right? And yeah, whatever. But like I said, I wasn't ready to move on. I wasn't done with him. Anyway, whatever. So here it is that I'm in this thing. We're cool again. But then I started to notice whenever we do go out together that his issue, like drinking, makes him rude towards me in a way that he never was. Like before, he knew how to hold his liquor. He was like one of those happy drunks, right? Yeah, never rude, never rebuffing, never disregarding of me at all. And then it got to a point where he would drink so much, and he was also so rebellious against me because of a spirit that was put in him of rebellion by his friends. They were taunting him with his adoration for me. It's like they didn't want him to just like surrender to the fact that he was in love with a woman that he really was very comfortable with and content with her. They did not want him to surrender to his state of being happy now. They wanted him to hurt me. They wanted him to hurt his woman. And that ambivalence, that capitulation to that darkness caused him to start to be rude to me. The way that some of these guys were already very naturally rude to their girlfriends. It's like he got trained to disregard and be distasteful towards me. And it was at this stage that, remember, my love language, the words of affirmation. When my ex started to kind of rebuff me or start ignoring me when I would talk to him or be like, "Ay man, kabo," whatever. And again, also start to use my name a lot instead of my, like, the, you know, baby or whatever. That's when I was like, every time I was drinking, he was drinking. Both of us were drinkers, right? But however, I was able to hold my liquor in a way that he wasn't. Like, he was, like I said in my earlier parts, I was usually the one that everybody had to just kind of hold her down to vomit, because alcohol never really sat well with me. And now I was doing that. And not only that, he was also very rude, right? I could not handle him anymore when he was drinking. And so I raised it one time when he was sober, and I was like, I don't know if this is because of the loss of your brother or what, and really I have compassion and empathy and sympathy for your sorrow, but you cannot allow alcohol to take you away. You can't drown your sorrows, because when you are drunk, you're horrible to me, and in a way that you just aren't. It's like a whole personality transformation, and I cannot watch you like this. I'm not gonna stay. I'm not gonna stick around, because over and above you being drunk, you are also rude. You used to be a happy drunk, and now you're not. So since alcohol, you can no longer hold it ever since your brother passed away, you gotta make a decision here. Since you cannot just have one beer, you struggle to have just one. He used to like, what is this? That is it whiskey or what with Coke? Yeah, that was his like main drink thing that he had. It was some funny. Is it J&B Likogu? Yeah, that's what I think he used to like constantly drink a lot. Every time we go out, that's what he would order. I was like, no longer can you just have one such drink or even two. Now you're like basically downing the bottle. You don't even do the Coke. So you're not, and he wasn't a vomiter, and neither was he the kind to suffer a very bad hangover, so he could just go on pooza without ramifications to the body physically the next day. Now there is therefore on that day not even an incentive to stop. So I ended up being like, you're like, the alcohol is making you a monster, and nah, I'm not gonna stay. I'm not gonna, like, we go out a lot, we party, on the weekends. We're still young, and if at all, my night always ends horribly because of how like much you're so drunk. You slur as well now, and nobody is calling you out. That's the thing. These friends of yours, nobody is saying, "Hey boy, now you've done too much." Nobody is actually looking out for you except for me. I basically sat him down and told him, it is obvious right now that you are messing with the only person that really is entirely your fallback, or the person that's kind of right. Like, I'm the one that has to deal with our too heavy. Remember, we used to book into hotels and stuff. I remember one time he was so mean to me that I left in his drunken stupor. I left the hotel room in the wee hours of the morning, like 3 a.m. or something, to take a walk outside to breathe, and I was so hurt that I literally got out of the gates of the hotel and walked roaming aimlessly in the wee hours of the morning because I was so hurt, and I was expecting him to follow me out because I'm a woman, and he didn't. He did not. He let me put my life in danger that way. I was in that much pain, and he didn't follow me out. And I was like, you don't even care about me when you're drunk. You don't even care about my safety when you're drunk like that. I could have gotten taken, raped. I acted out of sorrow, and you did not pull me from the danger that I was in. If I had died, you would not have been able to recover from the fact that you watched your girlfriend leave in the wee hours of the morning to walk the streets of like Joburg, for crying out loud, outside of a hotel. You don't know what is lurking out there. Guys, I walked such a far distance out from the hotel in this dark, dingy joint, and literally got close to like the nearest garage by that hotel, and I walked back, literally expecting that my ex would come after me on some baby, come back in Yabanda, and on top of that, you're putting yourself in danger. Yeah, you stop acting out, you're gonna get hurt. Nothing. When I came back, he wasn't even sleeping. He was watching something on the TV in the hotel. So he was clearly concerned enough to not allow himself to sleep, but arrogant enough, too arrogant, too pompous. Some spirit had entered him to actually go and fetch me. So it's almost as if though maybe he would have waited for like, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours to progress before he would actually go out of the hotel to find out, have you seen such a woman? She hasn't come back. He was worried enough to stay up and not sleep, but not enough to follow me. And it was at that stage that I believe it kind of dawned on him that I don't know. So like my ex, literally at the point where I was at the precipice of leaving him, this time I was done, I was finished. He always did something so life-changing, so transformative, that I was like, okay, fine, I'll give you another chance. Since I was still so in love with him, I then let him back in. And the thing that he did, like I said, it lingered me in the situation. After we had the discussions multiple times, it did not just take one talk, but it was maybe like over like 2 or 3 months with these incidents with him in this drunken stupor, that when it became clear that now I was literally 5 seconds out of the door, like 5 seconds, then he stopped drinking, like proper. And he, like my boyfriend, I met him when we met, he was a drinker. I stayed drinking and he was sober. At the same time, more or less, that's when he was also he got his driver's license, so he became a designated driver. This guy was given so much. My God, he became a designated driver in the sense that now everywhere we went, he decided to drop the bottle. I was still drinking because alcohol was not having a field day with me, right? But he was sober, right? My ex not only stopped drinking before I stopped drinking, but he also stopped smoking before me. Yes, I used to smoke cigarettes. That's how much he never used to pressurize me to be he was such a great guy, and now he has become a monster. And I am here trying to explain to you, witchcraft, what it does, heeding incredible insanity, what it does. When the Bible says bad company corrupts good character, my ex is a textbook case. He was at war internally with a very natural baseline goodness. If he had given his life to Christ, he would have been among the best guys in town. Do you understand? Because he was already pretty good in his pre-salvation state. He was already a pretty excellent guy, and he allowed all that to get thrown out the window by wicked counsel. Do not underestimate just how horrible bad friends or bad influences can be on a person's character. They can make you a menace that you never signed up for. So this guy, because the war inside him was real and alive, and good it appeared to be pioneering and prospering over evil in him. Whatever spirit he capitulated to that would have made him into an alcoholic, right, a drunk, he just nipped it in the bud. One day he told me, okay baby, I'm gonna stop drinking, and he did. He stopped, like I said, to a point of becoming a designated driver. he stopped drinking and smoking. I ultimately also dropped both things. First smoking and then drinking. And so basically I caught up with my boyfriend, but he did it first, and he did it for me. These are the things that made me stay. They made me stay. So he quit drinking before it could take him down in a downward spiral of insanity altogether. And it was stuff like this. Stuff like the fact that and next thing, we get him back into the club. We get him to disrespect her. He cheats on her. Next thing, I know, what's like, literally, I was just this phenomenon in his life that caused a whole bunch of his guy friends to basically hate on him. I told you in my previous parts that men compete with women, while women compete with makeup, like curls and all that jazz. Men, when a man meets like basically a rare find, a gem, they will cause their brother to lose her and do it in a way that looks as if though they're looking out for him. They don't want him to lose his manhood, but if anything, they are causing him to lose manhood. Like, manhood is chivalry, manhood is honor, it is respect, it is adoring of a woman, it is the ability to love a woman the way that Christ loved the church. And my ex had it down even before salvation. He would have been so awesome as a man if he had given his life to God, because already so much was just baseline in him that way. Anyway, whatever, right? So after he stopped drinking alcohol, the attacks ramped up from his friends. Remember I told you the friend that caused him to cheat on me? My ex, okay, nobody put a gun to his head, so really everybody's to blame here, but he severely influenced him to basically just disregard all the sorrow in my life. That friend, my ex stopped hanging out a whole bunch, but that did not make him, and he recovered himself to me. We then started spending all of our time together again. But before that happened, so the whole alcohol thing, my ex stopped drinking before my mom kicked me out of home. I told you guys that my mom and I had a falling out when I was working this job, and then she was like, get out of my home, at which point I could not afford to my own apartment because I was busy paying off a whole bunch of debt, my school fees at Wits and all that jazz. Otherwise I would have been able to afford my own apartment. And my ex loved me so much that he was prepared to pretty much put aside his own convictions about not wanting to live with a woman before he's like really sort of kind of determined to marry her. He's like decided and whatnot, right? He was not ready yet to do Ifat and said type establishment thing, but he did it with me against his own parents. I guess disquiet. Like, yeah, his parents were not happy with it, but he was like, like what? Like, yeah, like we're moving in together. Like, take it, like, or leave it. So he basically told his mom and dad that I'm sorry that you're disquieted by me moving out. Plus, he was still in a season of mourning for his brother, and everybody was kind of somber in the house, and he wanted to get away from that. I made mention of that in the previous part. He did not want to be in an environment that was always so macabre and like there's somebody missing, and it's just he wanted to be somewhere fresh and different and new, and he imagined that moving in with me will help him escape that sorrow, that he's not always so broken by also seeing his mother crying every night, his dad, everybody's just in a state type thing. So he moved in with me against what they were content with type thing. That was the first time I really ever upset the parents, because the mom really liked me a lot. The dad was ambivalent because I was so strong. I had such an influence on him that I transformed the way that he was, and his father just felt like a man should be the one to run the show. But daddy, dearest, you are the one whose son was irresponsible from the get-go, and he was on a downward spiral, and the thing I was positive for him. So I mean, gratefulness would be appreciated at this point, because your son was never ever going to get his own act together. Like, I was a positive influence in a way that he couldn't deny, and that's ultimately why he sort of kind of capitulated to what it is that I was, because his wife kept on being like, God, I gave him the name Peter or Stephen. God was Stephen, Minang Tandu Karabo. The mom was always like Minang Tandu Karabo, and she would explain to him why she likes me so much, and he would be like, I guess, basically he was, Dankia Mutomuntu. That's the way that the dad was. He was thankful for what I did for his son, but in a way that made him feel like, but still, she's too strong for him. She's too much of one of those butchy androgynous futhi une career, we are funda zonke lezinto that my son is not doing. And a woman so much stronger than a man, one day uzomshiya. He used to make my ex believe that I'm gonna leave him for another man, and that never happened. Look, I'm still single 12 years down the line. Yeah, so it turns out somebody was wrong. Anyway, whatever. However, okay, so that is what was the circumstance all up in that particular grill, right? Very cool. So my mom kicked me out of home. I moved in with my ex. We got an apartment down the road here, like, yeah. And yo, guys, the guy had stopped drinking. So I thought, cool. I was the one, however, still sort of kind of one glass of wine every so often, type thing. Despite being sober for me, he became sober for me, okay? It was when he was living with me that the attack ramped up. And I believe when we were staying together, this is when his boys probably also started using witchcraft on me. The Lord, on us, on our relationship, the Lord, when I got saved, right, showed me in retrospect, sort of kind of reverse engineering, friends of his that had put witchcraft on our relationship, and how it is that they were busy pretty much throughout the not throughout, but from a certain point. And one of the friends that capitulated to witchcraft, so initially he was physically manipulating my friend, not my friend, his friend, my man. And when then that failed, when he could not separate us with his deeds, his influence, his words, yeah, then he graduated over to witchcraft, to literally just sow discord. And Amanje, when you are busy slapping a person with meaty, right, and they don't have Jesus, the discord, like the occult is constantly sowing discord between people. What my ex and I had was beautiful. The sad thing is it was outside of Christ. It was, yeah, you get my point. So because it was outside of Christ and both parties involved were indwelt by the Holy Spirit, we both capitulated to witchcraft. We both basically got afflicted by it. At this stage, my ex was not yet into witchcraft himself on me. Like I said, our relationship started out very organically. No manipulation via korobela, waza, whatever. No muti. Nothing of that nature. He eventually got introduced, oh goodness gracious God, into it by Dichomi. And how he capitulated to it was because he was told that he could finally subdue me and be strong and big and manny over me in a way that would make me just submit insofar as he tried it. And the only reason why my ex was cancelled unto this end was because his friend perceived me as one that was overbearing over him because I was so transformative positively in his life. My ex was a man that was in dire need of a helper suitable to help him get to where he needed to get in life. I was the wind beneath his wings. I was going to be that. But his friends viewed it as me being controlling and domineering. And the sad thing about that is to misinterpret a supportive woman as a controlling, domineering woman is to basically, if you heed wicked men telling you that this is what's going on, is to mess up with a ride or die woman that in her being ride or die and so helping you get to the next level is viewed rather as telling you what to do. When you misinterpret or misconstrue those two, what happens then on that day is a man completely shatters the best thing that he ever had, only to later very severely regret it. Women, especially in the black community, tend to be content to being with guys that are not as strong as them, but insofar as they see potential, they will help this guy get to the best of himself, where he needs to go. And this means a lot of investment, time, money, all that just to get him to where he needs to go. Inspiration, motivation, just being there for someone that needs to get his life together, and also sometimes having hard conversations. And when you're constantly having a hard conversation with a man and he keeps on getting told by his boys, we are ruler, we are controller, whoa, on that day this man then starts to perceive you sitting him down to basically talk about the fact that, but you've been in the same job for like what, 2.5 years, why don't you try and guys, it took me so long to get my ex-boyfriend to basically apply for a promotion from where it is that he was at. It took me 2 years. 2 years. That was in already for about 2 years, and it took me another 2 years. So he stayed in that call center job for 4 years. Who stays in a call center job for 4 years? Who? It took me so long to encourage him to network in his company and maybe even try to apply outside. And ultimately, when he got the promotion, we were so happy. The two of us, the celebration was so extreme. We partied, we drank, we ate, we broke bread. Yo guys, yes, and I was so happy, so happy. And he also was so happy in this new environment. He was finally free from the bondage of a call center, for crying out loud, that it was just such a happy time. And he was also in and of himself so happy to get that promotion that for me it was like, why did it take you so long to even try to get it in the first place? So long story short, he benefited from me pushing him, and yet he resisted me for so long before finally capitulating. Why? Because he was listening to evil friends. A woman is a helper suitable when she is trying to get a man to the next level, because he's complacent. It is not because she's controlling. doing. It's because she understands that it is ideal when a woman is under her man in all regards. He gotta be stronger. His ultimate ambitions were to start a business, and I knew that that would then make him eventually much bigger than me, and that's what I was gunning for. But to get there, dude, you gotta move from one place to another. He was just sitting and he was dragging his feet. Like, this guy would take the same advice I would give him. He would only take it if one of his friends gave him the same piece of advice, and it'd be like, but I told you this like a year ago, and your friend says it, and in 3 months you've done everything that I already highlighted or raised a year ago. You are literally ignoring me. And when I would be talking to him, he would like be nodding and be like, yeah, no, sure, we're gonna do it, and then he would just ignore me. It's like he just had this passive aggression now, where he was like, you're not gonna tell me what to do, but he didn't say it to me in my face. He just like displayed that he was disinterested in hearing what I have to say by simply listening to me and then moving on and doing absolutely nothing. And this is what would cause me to a lot of times be like, you know what, it's cool, I'm leaving. I can't, because look at me, I'm growing, and very strongly. I'm studying, and on top of that, my career is burgeoning. When we met, you were earning more than me, and now I'm earning more than you. Dude, I don't care how much I earn, because the earning potential that you have from starting the business that you want to start exceeds me cataclysmically, like by an astronomical amount. So I don't care that I'm making more than you right now, because I understand the day is going to arrive when you are bringing way more than me, purely because that's what business men and women do. Corporate South Africa can never earn you the kind of money as an employee that you can ever earn as a person in business. And this is what this man was striving towards, and I was trying to be that propeller behind him. And all the ideas that I would give and throw down, he would ignore them until one of his boys gave him that counsel. Guys, it was so disheartening. It was so incredibly disheartening. What is this? The way my ex was made so rebellious to listening to anything that I said. Like I said, he allowed his learner's license to expire before he got a driver's, just because I kept on pushing for it. And yet when he finally got his driver's license, he was so happy. The car, it took him so long, precisely because when I was busy giving ideas, he was like, I'm doing my own thing, I'm Frank Sinatra. And when he finally got it, he was so happy. The business that he started, right? The way I was so ride or die and so supportive, he made a decision to make me in it, because this dude was determined to marry me one day. A silent partner or something of that nature. And because he wanted a woman to be there so that, he would have benefits under employment equity, to get basically like deals, tenders from companies. Yeah, he did that, right? And despite putting me as a silent partner, and us obviously then clearly headed towards marriage, because who does that with somebody that is just a girlfriend? He then decides to be complacent, do absolutely nothing, and pretend like I'm not beneficial towards him. It's like he was playing batting for both teams, playing both sides. He was appeasing his friends while he was remaining literally stagnant for way longer than he ought to have been, while on the other side making it appear to his girlfriend like, look, I'm listening, it's just taking a little bit of a while. He deliberately moved like a snail so as to make me feel like I'm no longer like pregnant to improve him. And this was in order to please his friends, of which, mind you, were all of them skyrocketing in their careers or their businesses. They were doing so much better than him, and they were allowing him to be slowed down. They were making him get slowed down simply because he would not listen. They did not want him hearing out or listening to a woman that was talking behind him. Whereas the Lord says in his word, husbands, if you don't listen to your wives, your prayers are going to get hindered. Women, you are helper suitables. I was already walking in the stead of a helper suitable, and my ex refused to let me be that thing, at least visibly. He did not want to give me credit where it was due, so he slowed himself down. My ex only gained prosperity after we broke up, because at that stage my voice was out of the way, and so every move he made, he was making it in what he imagined to be his own time and decision. So he quickly grew after we broke up, just because he didn't want to listen to me, and he thought that I would salivate after him after we broke up, now that he was making money. But by then, when a woman's fed up, ain't nothing you can do about it. I was done. He tried to flaunt and flail the thing that he was doing all up in my grill to see if maybe he can't convince me to come back, but I was like, we're done, because that's also another thing. He became rude. Let's move to the next part.